friends, and welcome back. Today I'm going to go through and show you how much meat you will get from a rabbit that you have processed. We have went through and butchered all of our breeder does and our breeder buck who wouldn't breed or who were small, who didn't really have the genetics we wanted. So we got 4 rabbits in total that come out of our breeding program that we butchered. But I weighed them before we butchered and after we butchered, so you will be able to tell from what your rabbit weighs what amount of meat you will get in the end. I think the common misconception we get is that rabbits don't have a whole lot of meat on them, and these rabbits necessarily don't, because they are older rabbits. They were on a more of a diet because we keep our breeders on more of a diet because overweight rabbits won't breed, so they are a little less meaty than what our grow outs are when we butcher them. But this is what I had right now, so this is what I'm going to show you. Also, I am going to go through as I talk to you and break down 2 of these rabbit carcasses to show you how to do it. So if you've never broken down a rabbit carcass into pieces, then I will show you how to do that. I break my rabbit down into 5 pieces, 6 if you count the belly flaps. Some people don't eat the belly flaps. I have been putting them in my freezer. I'm going to try to make rabbit jerky out of them here soon, so I will of course bring you along for that as well. But today, let's get started. Let's find out how much our rabbits weighed before butcher, after butcher, and let's go through how to break down a rabbit carcass. So I have my rabbit carcasses here. They have been dry stored just like this in a pot with no water in the fridge with just something laying over it for 3 days now. So it's time for me to deal with these, get them broken down, and get them put into the freezer. So the method of dispatch we do is called cervical dislocation, and it kind of snaps the spinal cord at the neck. It's very quick and over very, very fast. However, it does tend to leave a bruised neck bone up here, and I like to just cut it off. So all you have to do is cut down a little bit and cut in between the vertebrae. I will say with the biggest rabbit carcass that we have in here, I am going to keep it whole. I will cut just the neck off, and we're going to smoke it. So we'll go ahead and cut this neck bone off and stick it to the side. Anything that I'm not saving for us to use or saving to use in broth, like I don't save these bruised and bloody parts for broth, all of that will go to the chickens. And that just gives you a prettier carcass. So all I'm going to do to store this as a whole rabbit in the freezer is I've got its back legs in my hand, and I'm going to pull up on its rib cage and stick them one at a time inside of the rib cage and fold it in like this. And you can store it in a freezer bag without those back legs poking into your freezer bag and puncturing it. There you go. So all it needs to do is rinse off, and this one's ready for the freezer. This is the whole rabbit. Okay, this one I'm going to piece apart. This right here is just a little bit of shoulder fat. You can either leave it on or take it off. It doesn't matter. Rabbits tend to get a little shoulder fat and then fat around their organs on the inside. If you see fat, like really thick fat anywhere else, your rabbit was most likely overweight. So first thing I'm going to take off are the front legs. A lot of people refer to them as wings on the rabbit. So bunny wings is kind of what they like them as. And all you do is push up on it and see where that shoulder blade is, and you're getting behind that shoulder blade. Rabbits are super easy to break apart, and the first part I always do are the front legs, and that's because they're easiest. There's no bone joint here to connect the legs, and so they literally, it's just skin and muscle, and you just cut right through. Comes off that easy. And so it looks like a chicken wing. I'll do the other side. So I just push up, find that shoulder blade, cut back behind, and there you go, you have another bunny wing. So it's 2 bunny wings. The next part I remove is called the belly flap. Some people eat this, some people don't. It's just got a weird texture to it, so I don't suggest you cooking it up like you're going to cook up any of the other meat. It's just the belly goes along the belly. I am going to try to smoke it and turn it into a rabbit jerky. So, like I said earlier, I will bring you along for when that happens. So I will be removing my belly flap, and you just follow along the edge of the belly and up along the edge of the ribs. So my ribs come here. So I'm just going to go in front of that last rib and then just cut along. You're not wanting to cut any of the bone, and it's literally just a flap of skin that hangs on the side of the belly. 2 belly flaps. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do to this rabbit is I'm going to take off this rib cage, because this portion right here is the tenderloin, and I love to keep that part intact. That's Declan's favorite part, and he will eat the whole rabbit tenderloin himself. A lot of people will try to split that into 2 pieces, and if I'm going to debone the rabbit and fry it, I will do that. But if I'm going to bake it or anything else, then I will leave that in 1 piece. So all you do to take your rib cage off is you find that last rib that pokes all the way out, mine's right here, and you're going to cut in a V behind it all the way up till it gets to the spinal. Flip it over, find your last rib, and then cut behind it all the way till you get to the spinal cord. Then you just find where your V meets, put your thumb there and push, and it kind of like pops that spine apart. I know, y'all, it can be weird feeling at first, and I know it can kind of seem like it's hard, especially if you've never broken down an animal. Don't think of it as an animal if that helps you. The first few times I had to do it, I kind of had to think of it like anatomically, just as bones in a carcass. Now I'm fine with it, but it takes getting into the right mindset. This isn't an animal anymore, it's a carcass. It doesn't feel, it doesn't hurt. And then all you have to do is take and cut in between those bones. Mine snapped just above the last rib, so all I do is cut that rib off. So I have this rabbit carcass that I can use for bone broth for a rabbit. I will just take this neck off just like I did earlier. So take and find where my last little bloody bits are and cut the meat around at that portion. And then snap my spine. And take it off. So this will go to the chickens. And this I will rinse one more time and use in rabbit bone broth. Now our chickens get everything, so we keep a gut bucket, and then once we're done it gets dumped into the chicken pen. Even hides that I'm not going to use, they will kind of pick at it. Bugs will lay fly larvae and stuff in those hides, and then the chickens will just continue to eat on those larvae. So they'll get all the bloody bits, they love it. This will go to rabbit stock. It is perfect, it's fine. Some people cook this up and try to eat the meat between the ribs. I don't find that that's enough meat to be worth it. But after I make it into rabbit stock, if there's any meat that wants to shred off of everything that I put into my stock pot, then I will save that as shredded rabbit and make it into something like bunny tacos. So this is what we have left. We have our tenderloin and our 2 hind legs. So for our hind legs, take and grab and pull them apart so that they're like spread eagle, right? And then you hear how it pops. Let's try this other side. Spread it, and you want to hear it pop, and that just dislocates that hip joint, and so you can cut up where it pops. So cut both sides at the joint, and then look for where it popped apart and cut through there. And so I have a rabbit hind leg. This part is bone. The bone's right there. Beautiful muscling on that rabbit hind leg. And there you go. We eat these kind of like bone-in chicken breast. So again, I pop that joint. You can see it's popped too because it like flexes all the way back, so you know that joint is popped. And you can kind of see the line that you follow if you do it this way. You see how it creases right there? That's the line you're going to follow with your knife. And there's where the bone is, so that's where you have to find where it popped and cut around it. And another rabbit thigh. So now this is all you have left. You have your tenderloin portion and then your tailbone portion. Now you could take the option of leaving this tailbone portion on and just have like a handle on your tenderloin. That could be pretty cool. I go ahead and take this off and then use this tailbone portion for stock. So all you have to do is take and put your thumb at the last vertebrae above your cut line. So my cut line's here. I'm gonna go one vertebrae above that and pop. And again, it flexes all the way back. See? So I know it's popped. It's all the way back, pushed all the way back. And I'm going to cut where that popped. So that'll go into rabbit stock. And then I have my rabbit tenderloin portion. This is the best meat of the rabbit. And of course, Declan thinks it's his favorite part, so he always gets it. But if you flip it to this side, you can see that it technically is 2 tenderloins on each side of the spine. And so some people will split that and make it 2, but we find that it's, I mean, we eat a lot of meat, so Declan will devour this with no problem. And then as for me and Kenneth, we will each get 1 thigh and 1 wing portion for us. And so for our family of 3, 1 rabbit will feed our entire family. Now, to give you a good idea of what to expect, my family of 3 will eat 1 good sized rabbit per meal. However, we are a high meat diet here at our family. I eat a lot of meat. 80% of my food throughout the day are animal based products. So meat, eggs, yogurt, butter, milk, that sort of thing. I do eat other things, so I'm not a strict carnivore. I eat a lot of meat and fruits, but I do eat other things. I will have some carbs. I try not to take anything completely off the table. I just limit what isn't necessarily good for my body, and I am thriving on a high animal-based diet. So that is what I'm going with. However, a lot of people can't really put that into perspective because a lot of people out there aren't big meat eaters, and I understand that. So for my family, when I go to the grocery store and I'm looking for meat for dinner, minimum, if I'm doing a low meat dish like spaghetti, I will do 1 pound of meat for my family of 3 for a meal like spaghetti. If I'm doing something like burgers, where we're actually doing meat patties or some kind of meatballs or something like that, meatloaf, I do 3 pounds of meat for 1 meal. That is almost a pound of meat per person, one of those being 3 at the moment. We won't necessarily finish all that, but that is enough for an entire meal plus at least 1, possibly 2 lunches the next day. It won't even feed all of us for dinner and then all of us for lunch the next day, even with 3 pounds of meat. We just eat a high meat diet. So that's one of the reasons we have to start raising our own meats and stuff like that, because we do eat a lot of meat. When you look at this rabbit and you're thinking, oh my gosh, she's feeding 3 people on 1 rabbit, that's not going to do anything for my family of 6. Just know that your diet may not be the same as ours. If you eat less meat in your diet, you could easily get away with making that rabbit last longer, or if you incorporated it into something that isn't so meat based, like a soup or stew, that rabbit will stretch for a ton of people. But yes, we will devour one entire rabbit in one meal with no leftovers. Alright, so I got my rabbit logbook here. Yes, the one I created. And this is what I used to track weights of my rabbits before and after butchering. I did this on purpose because when I created this, in the back of it, I made butchering data sheets, and these are kind of created to be split up by litter, so you can track the size of your litters before and after butcher based on each buck and doe's breeding. So some rabbits, like Flemish Giants, your really giant rabbits and stuff, will have bigger bone structure and less meat structure. Some rabbits are shaped differently, so they have like a wider base, so they may look bigger but actually weigh less. Things like that. Different body structures and the way a rabbit muscles up and stuff is going to determine how much meat you get after butchering that animal. By having the ability to track it litter by litter, you know which buck and doe combination gives you the most meat for your rabbit, so you know who your best breeders are and who you should keep in the future. So that's where these sheets come in. So it's got a spot on here where you can write whether the animal you butchered was a buck or a doe. Now, really, the does tend to be bigger in rabbits than bucks. Once they hit maturity age, it may be different for grow out age depending on your breed of rabbits. But at mature ages, usually the does are bigger than the bucks. So I like to put whether it was a doe or a buck, and then I weigh them prior to butchering. You can do this before or after you cull the animal, so after you've ended their life, you can do it before or after. I use a fish scale and a 5-gallon bucket, so when you get the rabbit out of its pen, you can just stick it in the 5-gallon bucket, hang it up on the fish scale, see its weight as you walk to your kill station. And then I do a carcass weight, and for that I just take a glass bowl and a food scale and weigh each carcass before it goes into the saltwater solution. For our one buck that we butchered, he weighed 5 pounds, 5 ounces prior to butcher. Now remember, all of these are fairly small. That is a small buck for our rabbitry. I like for my rabbits to be 7 pounds or greater. Of course, the bigger the better, but all of these rabbits that were butchered on this day were on the smaller side. So 5 pounds, 5 ounces for that rabbit prior to butcher. It was a buck. After butchering, the carcass weight was 2 pounds, 9 ounces. So just over half of his weight was carcass weight. And then the next 3 rabbits were all does. So our next one come in at 6 pounds prior weight, 3 pounds, 1 ounces post weight. Okay, and then the next rabbit, another doe, was 4 pounds, 10 ounces prior to butchering. She come out to be 2 pounds, 6.1 ounces as a carcass weight. So right at about half of her weight. I'm going to figure out the percentages of carcass weight to live weight, and then I'll give you the percentage as well. And then so our next rabbit was 4 pounds, 6 ounces prior to butchering and 2 pounds, 1.8 ounces post butchering. So carcass weight. Let me find my phone, do the math, and I'll tell you what the percentage comes out to be. When I do the math and come out with our percentages for these 4 rabbits, our percent of carcass to live weight ratio was 49%. So 49% of the live weight ended up being our carcass weight. So a little less than half. 50% is my goal. These were not very far off from that, which is okay, but they were smaller rabbits. So in the end, my carcass weight ended up being smaller than what I prefer in my animals. I would much prefer to have a 4-pound carcass weight, which is what I'm going for in the future. So an 8-pound live rabbit, a 4-pound carcass weight is where we are moving towards in our rabbitry as we are growing bigger, better meat rabbits. And the book that I created, the logbook, is my goal to doing that. I created this for myself. I'm just sharing it with y'all by posting it on Amazon for sale. Of course, I will link it down below, but I just wanted to share that with y'all. So that's where we're at. That's how much meat we get from our rabbits, and that's how we break down our rabbits here on our homestead. If you do different or get different numbers, maybe you have a larger carcass weight, you have a smaller carcass weight per your live weight, I would love to know about it. Please make sure you leave that in the comments down below. And if you're new to raising rabbits, whether you do it for meat or not, I am glad to have you around, and I hope you stick around in the future. We have an entire meat rabbit playlist, but it is rabbit basics. It does have some butchering, sexing rabbits, and other things on there, so I hope you will check that out. Make sure you reach out to me if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing you next time, friends. So until then, bye. I will see you later.